regularly scheduled Nacogdoches City Council April 2nd City Council meeting, I'm sorry. We'll bring this meeting to order. Brad, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Lord, we come before you with gratitude. You never leave us nor forsake us. You call us to be good stewards of your creation and to love our neighbors as ourselves. May we lean on your everlasting arms. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You'll stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we have one item on open forum. Ms. Stovall? Or Levi, I'm sorry.
Get my notes.
Here you go.
Is this volume all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Hi, I'm Levi Stovall. I live at 919 Logansport Street, and I participated in the community walk down Pearl Street that was organized by Walkable Nacogdoches. The idea of that was just to give concrete experience of the pedestrian conditions there, because that organization's survey had identified Pearl Street as a place where improvements would be most useful. I'd like to thank Councilman Chad Huckabee for also participating, and the police department for offering to escort us. Let's see. Based on the walk, Pearl Street would be a great place for protected bike lanes and sidewalks, which would make it what's sometimes described as a complete street. And that term is, it references the idea that our publicly funded transportation infrastructure should support many modes of transportation. Walking and cycling are relatively low cost and accessible compared with motor travel, but they can be dangerous if roads are designed with only cars in mind. In fact, one of the officers who escorted us stated that people are nearly struck on Pearl Street every night. While bike lanes and sidewalks would be the ideal case, there are a lot of much cheaper and faster to implement measures that would go a long way on Pearl Street. In particular, traffic calming measures like visually indicated crosswalks and lane striping. And then at the intersection of West Star and North Street, it would be a really good place for a lighted pedestrian signal. And I know that that intersection is under TxDOT jurisdiction, but I think that something like that is something that the city can request. Walkable Nacogdoches survey just closed, and they're planning to share the results with the city engineer and the city council. I'd like to invite the whole city council to participate in the next walk, which is scheduled for April 11th at 5:30 p.m. and will focus on MLK Boulevard. I think that y'all will all get an email with details. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to consent agenda. Items to be removed, or a motion for all of them.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. To the regular agenda. Item A, consider the purchase of BME Model 34 Type 2 wildland fire engine from Sidmonds Martin Emergency Group for the amount of $523,835. Chief Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Brown, your fire chief. You may be looking at this item and feel a bit of deja vu, and you'd be right in doing so. If you remember correctly, a little over a month ago, I believe I came to you and asked for approval for purchase of this fire truck, which you generously did so. The very next morning, I sent in the paperwork to the company to start the ball rolling for the purchase. Both the apparatus they had that fit our bill had been sold. So sent us back to the drawing board, went back to this company and other companies as well. Long story short, there is another apparatus available that is being held, no cost, no harm, no foul, if it's not approved, that is being held for us. Very similar apparatus, cab's a little bit different. We're moving from a international cab and chassis to a Freightliner cab and chassis, which is, I was gonna say Ford versus Chevy, but it's more of a Chevy GMC situation. The motor, transmission the same. It's basically an aesthetic change. The nuts and bolts, the guts of the engine are exactly the same, anything past the cab. Unfortunately, that is a newer cab and chassis and incurs a higher cost. This item was originally budgeted for $500,000. Last apparatus that I brought to you came in under budget. This one is over budget. So this item and then the associated item with it that will follow are asking for approval for the purchase first, and then the next item is to amend the budget to be able to afford that greater cost. The cost increase is $64,954. It's kind of a cutthroat market in the fire apparatus world right now. If we, for example, next month, the price goes up again. Mid-month, they have another price increase. Basically what I have for you. I'll be glad to answer any questions or entertain any public comment.
Mike, you've got, or Chief, you've got the money for this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it just goes from that fund that you have, so.
Yes, sir. We have a vehicle capital replacement fund that is currently at $884,000, almost $885,000. Staff still supports the purchase even with the additional cost that is over $500,000.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So they can't go against this deal? It's solid? Or you can't wake up tomorrow and it's gone too?
They could.
Okay, if
they
somebody
still,
came in today and had the money in their hand, I promise you they will.
the
don't
company
wait on
involved, because I wasn't very happy, speaking candidly, has indicated that they will hold this truck, consider it sold until the determination tonight with a no harm, no foul. We won't owe them anything if we decide not to go down that road.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, okay, anybody, let's see, who, Randy, you have anything?
My questions were answered.
Okay. Ms. Keenan, you have anything?
My questions as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I'll make the motion that we approve item 6A as written.
Second?
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, 6B, consider approval of a budget amendment ordinance for the purchase of type 3 fire engine.
And again, this is just a follow-up. This is actually the formal process that just, being repetitive, formally updates our budget to show that we are increasing that original line item price that we had coming into this budget year.
And that was 64,000.
Yes, sir. The increase above the budgeted amount is $23,835. The increase of the apparatus from the first to this one is call it $65,000.
I will ask one question about this. Is there any way to avoid that in the future, to make it, I mean, I know the process, and this is a question for Mr. Beverland, because I just hate spending $65,000 more on.
Well, pre-COVID, the timeline on ordering things was usually a little bit different, and I think that it has been an unknown. Sometimes you're better off post-COVID seeing what they have off the shelf versus maybe a 2 to 3 year timeline once you do the build. I've dealt with it with transit vehicles where maybe you end up with or historic style trolleys. You wanted a diesel, they had gas off the shelf, and then by the time you compare everything apples to oranges, you're better off buying that now instead of waiting. And so Mike and I talked about it a little bit. If we can forecast it a little bit better over a multi-year period, that'd be the only way, is really, if you know today, that you're gonna get rid of something 3 years from now, because you're probably gonna be looking at, what, 24, 36 months for a build in some cases.
In this case, this truck is available. It's currently in their production, so the timeline is shorter. They estimated at 12 to 13 months. In reality, this one will probably come in faster than that. If I had to have one custom built, even though this is not a custom truck, if I had to have this one manufactured from the ground up at this point, we're looking at 24 to 36 months of delay.
I was just gonna say, if we need to have a special city council meeting next sometime to just immediately approve a budget item that we think is gonna go up, I'd be open for coming for,
Well, the way I understand it, we approved it. It just got sold
I know, but I'm
when
just
he
saying
got
that.
to the phone the next day.
Yeah, I
you know?
know, if we could get that turner, I don't know if
The,
that's possible.
I think the kicker comes, so in this case, Mike went through the process on what you were gonna do with the other truck and go to the new one. Because it wasn't one that we had ordered on a build, we weren't in the doing progress payments. So in this case, he actually probably didn't know that they were going to, you know, hey, I've got two and now I've got none. I don't even know, and he couldn't act to go ahead and move forward on the purchase, an advanced purchase. I think the one thing we could do is try to see if on a larger vehicle replacement schedule, if we could really start looking at that across the whole fleet, then we could start looking at, you know, theoretically, are we gonna go to some of the known, HGAC buy board on one side, maybe for, patrol vehicles, and then on specialty items, such as some of the things that Mike has, or some of the things we can buy off the shelf, really start mapping that out and what that looks like. But unfortunately, post-COVID, it is not a perfect, and then sometimes orders, the other thing was, once COVID hit, sometimes those orders were getting stretched out. And I had this experience with PD vehicles where you had to say, okay, wait, we're gonna have to go to something else, or we're gonna have to use a different supplier because we have an immediate need. We've had a couple units get totaled, and then all of a sudden, you've gotta go buy one sooner than later.
Well, please don't misunderstand me. I know you have done your best with it. I'm just saying if you need us to meet, you know, quick, you know, and I know we have to post it for that time frame, but we could meet like on an off week or something if we need to approve something. That was,
I don't think Mike thought it was a sense of urgency that they were gonna do a fire sale, no pun intended. I've been waiting to say that the whole agenda item.
that's so bad.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Keenan?
No, I found it.
Okay. All right. Okay. You have a motion?
Sure.
A motion to consider approval of budget amendment ordinance for the purchase of Type 3 fire engine.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next item, item C, receive a report, hold a discussion, and give staff direction regarding projects to be included in the first phase of general obligation bonds to be sold as authorized in the bond election on November 7th, 2023. Mr. Beverly.
Would y'all like me to do it from up here,
Whichever
up the
one you
podium?
feel- Whichever one you feel comfortable.
Let's see.
She's got a camera there.
There's
for you at the
a
podium.
camera either way. I can go up there. That's fine. I'll try to keep my, prologue to a minimum on this.
You can take as long as you want.
Mayor and council, thank you. Thank you for your patience with staff. Obviously, we've been working on the audit as well and making sure that's close to wrapped up before we go to the bond sale. Staff by department has been involved with putting together this presentation. Oh, there it is, so I'll know, okay. She's gonna help me because I'm technology challenged, as y'all probably know by now. What we did, we tried to look at the likely timeframe to actually spend money, which seems logical, but if it seems logical, that's probably the reason that it becomes complicated. So what we have two scenarios. One is really 3 tranches, and one with a potential 4th tranche of sale. That's really related to the airport. But by proposition, what we would have in the first tranche, and I'll kind of walk through the slides as well, is a portion for match regarding the airport layout plan and the runway, those grants. For Prop A, we have land acquisition, design, and then also construction of one of the fire stations in the first tranche. And reason being that that's a little higher, obviously, on that front end is because you'd be trying to not only acquire the land, but be trying to design a facility that could be used for the other two. So so hopefully you're gonna have your soft costs are gonna be more of a known quantity, and you get to construction at that point after you build the first one, then hopefully, fingers crossed that, now granted, by the time you get into grade changes, drainage, and all those other things that have to be factored in, and the nature of the land, that will change some of the actual outcomes on what's constructed, plus your timeline. Storm drainage, and then there's a few things in here that we're also pursuing funds on. We're gonna bring another resolution. Y'all passed one resolution of support for I-69. We're gonna bring the other one related to the other earmark request to Congressman Sessions at the next meeting on the 23rd. But we are going, we're looking at both drainage and we're also doing some streets work. So some of those things that are in here, and we could use that for leverage, obviously, across all three tranches. Some of the design work that's going on in-house, and then some is gonna be done, I don't wanna use the term when we get to things, out-house with Case. So that's what's in that. There may be a little right-of-way acquisition in a few of those things if needed as the design goes forward. Cemetery is looking at the schedule right now, they're showing it in the third tranche. There's a possibility, of course, to move that up slightly if need be into probably the second. Parks, that's primarily the restrooms from what I remember. Is that correct, Jessica?
It's the 3 playgrounds and then design.
Oh, that's designed for the restrooms, and because the playgrounds will be things that can be assembled, that's why that is set up that way. On streets, Case is doing, on the front end, he's doing a lot of that. This is construction, he's doing the design in-house. And then on sidewalks, I can talk about sidewalks too, I know this is on the bottom. I know it's been a lot of discussions at council and I'm not responding to any of those directly right now, but I do want to kind of lay out big picture. I have been looking at the pedestrian item from day one arriving, and there is method to the madness, and what appears to be silence is not silence, but there's a lot of moving parts, and we're going to have to probably do some advanced planning and see what we can leverage, because the plan would be to do more, not less, and do it where it's appropriate. And I'm kind of, having done that before in other places and on the private sector side, I can kind of walk y'all through some of the leverage opportunities. And I do think we should probably bring some other money to the table, maybe even to do the advanced planning pieces, and probably partner with, whether it's DETCOG or Brazos, because that does fit into the larger picture on how we would work to prioritize things. But again, there's some method to that madness as you peel back a layer. And so I'll go ahead and run through let's see, the one difference is, again, in the second slide is there's a portion that might be able to be pushed out on the airport just in terms of expenditure. We may not have the capability to spend all of those funds in 3 tranches. That goes back to the 50% limitation that was discussed on the front end prior to the actual bond package going to the voters. Go ahead, Rhonda. Let's see. There you go. Okay. So I've kind of just walked through there, but these are the specifics. Prop A is I call it ALP, Airport Layout Plan, and the runway resurfacing. And that also ties to tech stock grants. You've got design and acquisition of land acquisition and the construction of the replacement for the central fire station. And so it's kind of like on the issue of sidewalks. Once we go down this road, there's probably going to be some other things. I know what we do with the fire station, even this building, and even the next building adjacent to us. Those may be some additional planning and even implementation possibilities, economic development opportunities, all of the above. We can't bite all this off. It's like an elephant. You can't, I might be able to eat it all at one time, but y'all see me eat. But we're probably going to have to take these in logical pieces. So, but one will, let's just use the fire station. That's going to lend itself to some other decisions, the what to do with it. Just like if we were to rehab this building at some point, that would lend it to another question. So down the road, maybe we can dovetail these things into the same discussion so we can minimize our outlay and maximize our output. Let's see, so remaining, didn't have the cemetery on the front end and the first tranche. Parks, yes, the purchase of the equipment and assembly, and then the restroom, the actual design phase. Streets, we've got it spread across. I would assume the ones that, I don't want to speak for Case, he's obviously here for questions, and he and Jason wear the same uniform, so they stand ready. That's an Aggie joke and a engineer joke at the same time. But I think he's picking the ones that he knows he can design sooner, faster, and get them to bid. And then on sidewalks, so we will need to do public input, but my opinion on the larger pedestrian streetscape issue, when I look at it coming in cold, having been in Galveston, having been in the Austin area, having been in Houston, having put together master plans for Upper Kirby, Midtown Houston, Uptown Houston, in the different life. And now that we have SFA President, Mr. Weaver, Dr. Weaver, in, I think we have a huge opportunity, low-hanging fruit, in terms of North Street. We know that TxDOT also has funds for on-system projects. There's a lot of things we could do with just resurfacing improvements. We have no pedestrian scale lighting between downtown and the college. I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it, our front door kind of looks like our back door. And there's a lot we can do, and there's tools that we can utilize because of the presence of Brazos Transit, because of some of the planning funds. And then, historically, we did not receive a lot of funds through discretionary project calls from the feds. We're trying to enter that phase now. And I think once we do some advanced planning, probably what I would consider a pedestrian transit master plan. So under the Federal Transit Administration paradigm, they used to call it the Livable Communities Initiative guidelines. That was really within 500 feet of a given transit stop, or even a quarter mile of a larger super stop, or a station, could go even half mile or more. That was kind of how you would approach what would be eligible for federal funding with the feds. It wouldn't fund it for you, but it would be kind of your basis. So to do that, and that's where, and I'll say on the front end, in practicality, things like the terms like complete streets don't even enter my vocabulary. I'm going to look at what is viable, both financially, in terms of environmental clearance, drainage, functionality, usage, density, connectivity, all of those things. So when you have the theoretical sidewalk to nowhere, doesn't really benefit anyone. I've seen even on new build suburban developments where the development code might say, okay, go ahead and build that on the front end, and it literally doesn't connect to anything. I've also seen areas that have high density, that have the right-of-way, where it was never put in and needed to be put in. And because it was already developed, the only people that could put it in their entity would actually fall onto the governmental unit at some point to go ahead and step forward and do it. So I've seen everything in between, having done this for cities, counties, transit districts. And I do think we have a lot of opportunity, and we need to leverage that against federal funds, state funds, the on-system projects. If you look at North, it's like right now, it's like one big traffic calming device. Even taking a four-wheel drive F-150 across those intersections, I can only imagine what that's like for a pedestrian. Well, having walked, I stumble on it now, so I drag one foot still, so, or I still do. If you're, you know, if someone has a walker, I've seen people struggle with walkers, wheelchairs, all the above, just the transitions at those streets. If TxDOT and us work together, try to smooth those transitions, have very visible crosswalks. I think we also need to look at where we have crosswalks and crosswalk consistency. I think there's other opportunities such as in-street lighted crosswalks where they fit. That doesn't mean they fit everywhere, but down by the college right in front where you've got, so you're talking about taking, you know, actually pedestrian counts, then we're looking at right-of-way, then we're looking at all of the things that factor in, and then of course cost. So my recommendation is, especially if we can tap some planning funds from one of our partners, or even if we put some in and they put some in, that we try to do an existing conditions analysis. We probably try to dovetail that into wrapping up the downtown plan, wrapping up the comp plan, and then coming up with, at the end of the day, it doesn't do any good if we have something sitting on a shelf. It really needs to result in an implementable, phased implementation plan. And so, and if there is future bonds too, as well, that we need more match, we actually have that as a go-by. We also have something that would be recognized by the feds every time we go after earmark funds. So we do have a lot of the conditions, though, that would check the boxes. We do have Brazos operating, we've got the college, we've got pedestrian activity. We just need to have the right facilities in the right places. So, and I realize some of these things as we go through them, because it probably hasn't been approached this way, there'll be questions and there'll be answers, but some might not be the answers everybody wants or when they want them, but there's a process to go through. So I think it will be eye-opening as we go through it, really what we can afford and what we can implement, and what is the right thing to implement. So it's not anything and everything everywhere, but can it be the best it can be? And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do when everything we look at here for the city is making Nacogdoches the best it can be. Not somewhere else, but the best Nacogdoches it can be, period. Let's see, we'll run back through these. Let's see. Okay, tranche 2, ran through that. Fire station. I think we've covered everything unless anyone has any specific questions. Be happy to. Or
This may be for
staff.
you or Case or whatever, but I assume that the drainage is both what we, and you don't have to get up, just nod if I'm right, that not just what we can do quickly, but also what our emergencies are in drainage, because I know we have some emergencies. Some of them I think we're already tackling, but is that correct, Case? Is that what you're looking at, or in the drainage? And then I have a question about those tranches too, so.
Yeah, there was, excuse me, I guess I should introduce myself. Case Opperman, Director of Public Works, City Engineer. We in the bond package itself and in the documentation with the bond, there were basically priority areas that were identified which we would try to focus any bond money towards. And there was, I didn't bring the list in front of me, but you know, there was a couple dozen. We would tackle as many of those as we can with the bond money. Probably half a dozen of those were the ones that we proposed for the appropriations money on the first project for storm drainage that we sent in. And so hopefully those would be funded by the feds. But we would still, you know, plan in case we didn't get that money to be able to pay for it with bond money as we originally had anticipated. The design in tranche 1, the 1.2 million actually is really for design and any surveying and potential acquisition that might be needed in case we need easements or something like that, which a few of these do go across private property in some locations, so there will be a little bit of easement acquisition I would anticipate. But no, it was basically what we were trying to design in tranche one are the specified list. And any leftover money that we would have, you know, we've definitely got more needs, than what we have even $5.9 million to fix with. But, I don't know if that answered your question.
Thank
So,
you.
Okay, so you're dealing with three funds, basically on drainage right now. Bond, ARPA,
yes, sir.
and then the federal funds that, through appropriations.
Hopefully, yes, sir.
Okay. That's a pretty good total, isn't it?
We're trying to chip away at it. We're hoping to, there was, and I don't have it in front of me, I want to say it was around 2.5 million on the ARPA side for storm drainage. And then a couple of million, like I said, of the bond money that we were gonna spend on, say, half a dozen projects, we're trying to offset with the Fed money, which would then obviously free up that couple $1 million for more,
Right.
Projects on the storm drainage side to be taken care of with the bond money, so.
All right.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, that's wonderful.
On
Do what we can.
streets, you don't need as much soft money as you normally would on the other propositions, right?
No, sir. Really, the only soft costs we have are, one of the items you approved in the consent agenda was for site characterization services. Nobody asked me about that. I was a little surprised, but what that actually is basically testing on the streets itself. We get a geotechnical company in here to core on all of our streets that we're trying to look at for a project. They report all the different findings for pavement thickness and subgrade material and helps us kind of lay out the repair scheme that we go with for each street. So really, that's the only soft cost we have. We do all the design for these projects in-house, so.
But also, is that one of the items that you would like to get started right away because of maybe the product is a seasonal product, wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir. We're trying to get the money for that specifically as soon as we can. Really, you try to pave during the spring and the summer months, you can get into the fall. But once temperatures get down below about 60 or 50 to 60 degrees, you really don't want to be doing too much if you can help it. But we've definitely gone into the fall with past projects, but we definitely try to get done before about Thanksgiving. So we'd love to be able to get these streets rolling this year as soon as we can. That's also why you'll see if you've got the other spreadsheet in front of you, that's why we asked for $2.5 million this year versus 3.75 in the subsequent years, because we're kind of getting a late start on this year with the bond money. So I don't want to stretch ourselves too much. That $2.5 million would either get through this year or would get through next year as well. But our goal would be to do $2 to $3 million projects each year until the money's spent.
We're actually a month behind, right? Late.
Yep,
Because we had some issues in finance and we had to get a good audit before we could sell our bonds. So that's why
So you're getting half I mean, truthfully, by the time you do the bond sale, which, again, a month off,
Yes.
grand scheme of things, no.
Right.
You really have half a year that you're dealing with in terms of that. Now, one thing that might be helpful, let's forward to the one that shows all of the Gantt chart that actually, maybe it's going back, actually. Because there will be overlap. It's one thing y'all need to also remember. You'll have some projects that will be obviously getting designed or right-of-way acquisition in late '24 and into '25 and under construction across 25 and 26, and then others will be starting after the next tranche. So there will be overlap throughout this process. So, and then obviously the airport piece is where the ones that we think would push out the most. At the end of the day, and the other thing I think, I don't know if Case mentioned it, we are with our federal partners, and of course, we're even working with Congressman Sessions' office even this week, since we've got the legislative summit. We are looking at the low-hanging fruit in terms of low to moderate income census tracts, because those even have a higher percentage of potential federal participation, sometimes 90-10. And so our goal is going to be the same way on the pedestrian piece. It's going to be the same way across the board, even on the roads, drainage. We're going to try to maximize the local tax dollars. What I would say, this is really trying to bring back the federal tax dollars that have already been sent off for years, because historically Nacogdoches did not pull that back into the community. And if you go back, I can go back all the way to the years, I interned way back in the day for Tom DeLay back when his office was in Sharpstown. That tells you how far back. And one of the things that he had worked on way back when was trying to deal with the fact that Texas has always been a donor state. So not able to pull back every dollar. And so I think that with Congressman Sessions, I think our hope is that he can help us really start recovering those dollars that for really decades were getting sent off, and not all, if you weren't applying, you know, the whole Publishers Clearinghouse thing, if you're not playing, you can't win. We have to be in that process moving forward.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the streets that you want to pave immediately, they're sort of ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to have to tear them back up to do sewers and drainage?
We try to be mindful of that when we're choosing street lists. As a reminder, the bond street list was based solely on data that we got from our street pavement assessment that we did. It's been about 2 years ago now. So really, the whole list of streets for all three tranches, or however long it takes us to spend the money, is going to be off of that list of the basically ranked 3 to 5, so the worst of the worst. Now, we've also included a couple of streets that we've had a lot of complaints on along the way, because, you know, they've obviously been high priorities for the community. So, but generally trying to hit the list that we've had from the testing stuff. We do try, before we put a street on a list, to make sure that we don't have an impending, say, storm sewer or sanitary sewer issue that we know we're gonna have to fix in a couple of years. And so we will try to hold off, and there's streets that we've done that on. Tudor Street, for example, is one that we need to, it's on the street, it's on the storm drain list for the bond. It really needs to be paved, but we've held off because we don't want to do exactly what you're saying, which is pave it and then come right back in and tear it up and put a bunch of storm sewer in that's not there right now. And so as best we can, we try to minimize that as much as we can. There's always the Park Street scenario where we pave it in 2020 or whenever we did that, and all of a sudden we've got storm drain issues that we have to tear the whole street up, you know, from Mound to Richardson, and now we're repaving it again. Was one of the items on your list tonight, was awarding that bid. And so, and then you'll have water lines that blow up in the middle of a street that we repaved last year. So not always able to anticipate some of these issues that we have, but to the best of our ability, we try to.
Well, that's my question, is are you really, are you trying to balance that out and
are.
really forward thinking about just let's pave the street and, yeah, now we're gonna have to dig it up kind of thing? I know surprises happen, but you have the intention.
My biggest pet peeve, well, maybe not my biggest. One of my biggest pet peeves is to pave a street and then to have Jason Smith call me and say, hey, we had a water line blow up on Ritchie Street. Yeah. And I say, well, why'd you let that happen? Because, you know, I just repaved it last year. Yeah. It really grinds my gears to see that happen. So when we do, you know, basically identify a street need, I always ask him to go in and camera it ahead of time. The sewers we can do, water we really can't, but sewer we do. And if we've ever got one that he says, well, we're starting to have some issues, then I'll pull it off, and I'll just say, go, let's get that sewer on a list, or you know, if you can do it in-house, go fix it. you know, repair the manhole or whatever it is, and then we'll try to get the street next time. But you'll always have the ones that derail you, so.
One last comment, not a question. In the past, and it was mentioned earlier about walkability for MLK, it has always been in the past that 2 words was stated that you couldn't do sidewalks on MLK, and that was cost prohibitive. I think we need to take another look at that one.
On MLK, well, we've got a sidewalk project that we're supposed to be able to do with TDA money, and that's stalled a little bit. We've gone back to them a couple different times to try to jar it loose, but that revolving loan fund, if you remember from a couple years back, that sidewalk on MLK as well as one on, I believe,
For the little short
University. and-
section, yeah,
Right,
between University and Shawnee.
Shawnee, I believe.
Not Shawnee and East Main.
Yeah, well, we can definitely look at it. It's definitely got some grade challenges. We've looked at it in the past. And some of the houses are real close to the road, but we could definitely evaluate it.
When you,
A little
when
more.
you-
Yeah, I'm
when
sorry.
you're putting in a new water
I see you
main,
standing there. Sir?
when you're putting in a new water main from Shawnee to East Main, just throw a couple of sidewalks.
Oh, okay.
So, well, he's an Aggie. They might be made of asphalt or rock, but, or maybe rock.
We'll get you
Sorry.
a sidewalk on.
So, one thing is with, and of course, so we fall, obviously in the rural category. So, under FTA, on the FTA side, traditionally, over 50,000, you're able to use a tool known as pre-award authority, known as letter of no prejudice. But Roy, you probably know what it is with your work on Brazos Board.
Yeah.
And we'd have to explore that with TxDOT under PTN, the Public Transportation Division. But if we had a form of pre-award authority where we spent bond funds up to a certain amount, traditionally, once you would get, if you had that letter, either from TxDOT or through FTA, once you go in to spend that money, you follow everything, Davis-Bacon, all the federal requirements, you're effectively building match. So when you would get a hit of federal funds on the next project, it would already be matched. So you might build a more expensive segment somewhere, and then what that is doing is actually then matching something else. So that's really why we need to put together the larger plan. Now, a advanced planning level plan is not full preliminary engineering. It's obviously not final engineering, but through that, we can at least determine if we have enough right-of-way, if we have a critical issue in terms of drainage or grade. The other issue is grade. Tell you in the hill country, grade is it, and then that rock's another thing. Now, we luckily have softer soil, but we also have that issue of, are you gonna have to over-engineer it to even support it, or have to build a retaining wall, things like that. So, but that would be the part of the purpose of the plan, is really figure out where we can do things and be relatively cost-effective. So that'd be another reason to do that up front.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, since Congressman Session is going to be here this Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, they're going
Yeah.
to legislative session.
He has been very helpful in the Lufkin area, Angelina County, and Brazos Transit District. He's helped them obtain funds for different items, even sidewalks and bus covers.
Correct.
Bus stations. I mean, he's done a great job in that. So you might want to rub elbows with him.
Well, there are some meetings set up for that purpose this week.
I've got
Go ahead.
one thing I'd like to say, and just for transparency, we talked about this the last council meeting when our bond council was here. If you see, this is starting in 2024, the first tranche probably, which is like 15 million. That's when we have it laid out in 3 tranches all the way to 2026. So what this is doing is, we can't get it all at one time, because if we do and we don't finish the project past 3 years, then that money has to come back. It's almost a penalty that we have to pay back. So this costs us a little bit more doing it this way, but it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You know, either get it all now, and then what little gain that you would have as far as interest or anything, you're gonna give all back plus some. So, and this takes a little pressure off the taxpayer too, to where you're not giving the whole 15 or 16 cents all in 1 year. So I like the way this is laid out in tranches, and I think our city government and city manager and his staff has done a good job in highlighting exactly where we need to start with this. And now we've had an election, okay, we've got a calendar. Now we need to bless this, and this goes forward. So there we are. Kathleen, you.
I just wanted to say, I know some of us have had much more detailed discussions with you, and I know your experience in this and obtaining federal dollars, state dollars, matching dollars, Brazos Transit, transportation dollars. You know, before, when I was thinking of transportation dollars, before we ever interviewed you, I was just thinking of I-69, but transportation dollars are right here in our city, and they're available. And I have wept many times because we're rural and we're a relatively poor city, and there are federal dollars that are designed to be spent in communities like ours. And I really appreciate that we all, probably every single person in this room appreciates that we are maximizing our dollars, that we're leveraging every dollar that to bring down, you know, a lot more dollars. As far as so I appreciate all of you. I know you're all working together to get this all done, to get what the taxpayers have asked us to do, to get it all done and to get more bang for our buck and to get more accomplished than what we would just spend on our own. And I know we all appreciate that. As far as like whether we do it in 3 tranches or 4 tranches, I think whatever you want is okay with me, because you'll figure it out.
And keep in mind, we're also going to mention about spending more sometimes to
Right.
get more. Even how we manage some of the projects on the construction phase. You know, I've seen this where, again, project administration versus project management, where certain clauses are included or not included, and then the ability to actually have some kind of recourse, whether it's with the design engineer and or the contractor. We may have some of those things. Some projects are going to be in-house in terms of the design, and they're going to be a little less complicated. We'll have a construction inspector go out, but then others, you're going to need to probably have someone on the design team from the civil firm or the architect, landscape architect, and actually have them as the PM rather than just project administration where they're doing spot checks. And then you have something. Let's just say this, you might spend a little more on the front end, but it might save you a lot more on the other end. So we're going to be looking at maximizing each dollar that we can bring to leverage others, but we're also going to look at, can we have a better process to ensure that at the end of the day, we're
What we need.
a better end product too. Can you explain the $10 million fire station thing to me a little bit? Because you said this building, so the old fire station, in the early parts, what happens to it? I mean, are they gonna
And I'm
build
at-
the new fire station and then move out?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Mike to come up too. I don't wanna put him on the spot, but once we have, you know, we need to talk about kind of the larger capital and downtown plan, and then at some point, and that's why I think that at the end of the day, we probably will have to do a facilities plan that's gonna overlap into this. I don't know if it would end up with another bond or opportunities for 380s, or even, you know, do you stay in this building? Does this get turned into something else? What happens with the fire station? You have one of the oldest town squares in the whole state, and a whole lot of history here and a whole lot of opportunity. And you have the Bright Foundation, the building next door, and then you have the fire station. So you also have the Regions Bank. You have a lot of moving parts that I see as opportunity. And I do think we need to have those discussions, and there may be even private sector partners that could, or other institutions that can work with us to, foundations and such, to help us, again, be the best that we can be. No pun intended on that, but really be what we can, we should be. And again, with UT coming in and SFA right now, I think this is the time to have the discussion.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was just curious, you're taking of $19 million for how many fire stations?
For three.
For
It's
3.
16.
And you're taking 10 million to build 1.
That includes land acquisition for all 3 sites,
Okay,
design for all 3 stations, and construction of the first station, which is combining current Station 2 and Station 5.
so
The
you're
first
gonna,
tranche.
but you're gonna build 2 more stations for $6 million that you'll already have designed?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's what I didn't understand. Because it seems like a lot of money up front.
It is, certainly, it is. Our thought process there was, not that there's a tremendous amount of economy of scale to be found, but the central station, combining those other 2 stations, is going to be a standalone, and then the other 2 stations, we are going to design exactly the same. Minor change between the 2, simply because we have to have a house for our mechanic. But nuts and bolts, it's the same station.
And you won't move out of the old one until the new one's finished?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's see,
Do you have what you need from us, or
And
the
we would be
direction?
coming back for the official dome of all, and the sale to be approved on the May 7th meeting. Unless I'm corrected.
Can you come up with a better word than tranche? In deposit, installment?
Tranche?
It just seems so foreign to East Texas to me. Tub, bucket.
There you go, bucket.
Okay, it's first bucket. Thank you.
okay, Judy, did you have anything to add? Okay. Okay, Brandy?
Brandy Cartwright, 2806 North Pecan Street. The presentation was great. I appreciate the city manager explaining very clearly about all of the different things. I am curious how should we expect the community input aspect to be? Like, are we gonna just announce it here? Are we gonna put it out on, Facebook? How you're kind of thinking about doing that? I was just curious. Thanks.
I was just gonna say, we would advertise it as heavily as we can via social media, community message boards, stuff like that. We'd give a lot of advance notice that this is gonna happen. For example, we wouldn't start posting about it, the day before it happened, obviously. So it's a silly example, but we want community input on this, because what we don't want to do is spend valuable dollars where they're not needed or wanted. So we want people to give us their feedback on where sidewalks, for example, would be most utilized. Rick was kind of talking about the sidewalk to nowhere thing. Sidewalks make sense a lot of places, and they don't make sense a lot of places. So what we want is to maximize the money that we're getting, that the bond voters have given us, and try to get the best feedback we can, so that we can make the best decision on where these monies need to be spent. So,
And Brandy, if this is regarding also the pedestrian element too, if we're able to come back with even a proposal to do a pedestrian transit master plan, that would be an additional level of public input on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be, it's one thing to talk about $1 million sidewalks. Another thing, if we put together a $10 or $12 million project that's going to be 5 phases in and of itself, and the bond funds are part of that match, and then we're going to go after that over, a 5 to 7 year period to build it out.
Thanks, great.
Does that answer your question, Breen? Okay. Ms. Keenan?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right. Okay, so you have direction, right? Okay, all right. Next item, consider the approval and adoption of a resolution concerning a runway paving project and an airport layout plan update project at the A.L. Mangum Jr. Regional Airport. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Colin Smith, your airport manager. If you remember, about a month ago, I came to you asking for a letter of interest or permission to send a letter of interest to TxDOT concerning these two projects. And the letter was well received. They would like to move forward, and it's a little faster than I expected, but they would like us to pass a resolution, kind of a formal commitment to these two projects. I've worked with Jerry on the resolution that was attached to the item. This item, you know, it kind of formalizes TxDOT as our agent for this both of these projects. It outlines the funding split, and again, to remind you, these are both the split is 90% grant funds and 10% city funds, and the funds for the city were part of the first tranche of the bond. 5.3 million is the estimate for the runway project, and 400,000 for the airport layout plan. This resolution outlines the project cost and describes the projects in detail, more detail than the letter did. So it's just it's a formality. This will officially put it on the Transportation Commission's agenda, probably their June meeting for the State Transportation Commission, and they're the ones that will ultimately approve these two projects for funding.
Well, if they want something fast, we fix it to give it to them. We're going to let them have it, I promise you.
Yep.
Anybody got any questions?
No, you want a motion, I assume?
Well, Ms. Keenan, you have any questions?
I do not.
Brandy, you have any questions? Judy, you have any questions? Okay. Now on a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the adoption of a resolution concerning a runway paving project and airport layout plan update project at A.L. Mangum Regional Airport.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That concludes the regular scheduled meeting. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, we will be in executive session. We'll be back shortly. Okay, we're returning from executive session at 7:31. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, no action. This meeting is adjourned. God bless the great city of Nacogdoches.